We're headed to Baltimore. Did I mean Baltimore? What's coolin'? What's going on? We shoot a little Harry Potter potion out of your little spell because what's going on with this team right now? A little Azarath, Mesrion, Zinthos action, Raven style. We got to figure something out. That's all I can say. The amount of injuries, that's the problem with this football team. They have been decimaled to the core, and hopefully, as the season goes along, they'll get a little healthier. Got some big question marks, though, that's for sure, and we'll talk about that as we get through this video. And as of the recording right now, it is halftime with the Houston Texans and Baltimore Ravens. So just kind of want to give you a heads up on that. It's 24-3, not looking good for the Ravens. I am going to go through this roster, talk about what is working and what's not working, most importantly. And I also want to talk about coaching staff, free agency strategy, and then we'll get into that 7-round mock draft, which I'm sure you're ready to rock and roll with and see what happens. This team's still going to compete. Let's be real. This season is not over yet. This division keeps them in the playoff hunt. So while I know it seems a little grim right now, and it looks like they're going to fall to 1-4, maybe 1-5 after next week versus the Rams, there is still a lot of hope here when Lamar gets healthy. If they can start to get a little bit more continuity on the offensive interior with some of these younger guys like Voorhees, Falalele coming along, he typically gets better as the season goes along any which way. I think the key here is going to be the defense, and we'll talk about that in a minute. On the defense side of the ball, Zachary Orr, the defensive coordinator, gotta do better overall. With this offense, who are the stars? Obviously, we know Lamar Jackson is a star. Zay Flowers has been a star this season. Those two guys stick out to me as the top two guys on this offense right now. Derrick Henry, King Henry, the fumbles. I mean, he's been great. It's just the fumbling issue is the big thing with Derrick Henry that we're going to talk about. I'm not super worried about it. It happens. I feel like with all good running backs throughout their career, you're going to have a stint where you have a fumbling issue. Now, some of them, they recover from it and bounce back, and I think Henry will do that. I'm not panic button, cushion the code red. It has cost them, though, big time, and cost them a game or two at this point. I am looking at this roster in terms of needs. Strictly right now, I would say that they need to invest in a wide receiver 3. Hopkins has made some incredible catches, and I would certainly be trying to bring back Hopkins if you can on another 1-year cheap contract. I wouldn't be expecting him to get a ton of money either, because at this point in his career, he's more of a rotational player anyway. And you got touchdown Tez Walker over there. All he does is catch touchdown passes. So, and I figure he can take a step up, hopefully next season, going to year number 3. I'm still waiting for a little bit more with Tez Walker. But I do think wide receiver 3 could be a sneaky option in the draft. My bigger priority, though, here is going to be tight end and then also offensive guard. Those are the top 2 needs that I'm looking at on the offense side of the ball. Tackle-wise, they should be good. They're going to figure out the swing tackle situation, whether you bring back Joe Noteboom. Carson Vincent's more of a developmental guy. Maybe he comes along or not from Troy. Their 5th-round pick, I believe, in this past draft. He's a guy with some traits. Wasn't great at the Senior Bowl in the game. He was good in the one-on-ones, but the overall game was a little rough for Vincent. We'll see how he comes along and how he develops through the season, whether they feel comfortable he can be the swing tackle, because that's important for this football team. Ronnie Stanley's been a little banged up already so far this year. Roger Rosengarten has had his struggles this year, actually. He's not been perfect. He's played okay, though. He's definitely not been a liability for them. The liability's been at guard, and they've really struggled protecting Lamar Jackson up the inside. Even Linderbaum's had a bit of a down year. I mean, he's still a great run blocker. He opens up some crazy good lanes for Henry. However, as a pass protector this year, I've definitely seen him lose some reps. I'll say that. Him, Falalele, and Voorhees have really struggled with that cohesion on the interior. And that's why I'm saying, with Ben Cleveland being a free agent, Emory Jones, a rookie that I do like a lot, and he's going to move more than likely by the way that they're looking at it, is he's going to be the long-term right guard for this team. And I feel perfectly confident with that. You put him in there, he's strong, and he's going to be somebody that I think could be a long-term starter right guard. So that's one where I feel pretty good about. However, they could still add competition with Voorhees. I'm not 100% sold at this point. It is his first full year as a starter, so I got to give him a little bit of time when it comes to this. It's a position in an area that I think that they need to focus in on the draft and continue to throw some resources in. They don't seem to invest any big money in it or go big high draft picks other than Linderbaum per se. So we'll see what happens there, but I will be looking at that guard position. Tight end, as I mentioned too, with Andrews being a free agent, likely being a free agent. Kohler is even a free agent. Now, Kohler wouldn't be super expensive. They could bring him back as a tight end 3. I would say that they bring back one of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. If I had to guess right now, it would be Isaiah Likely for the youth, and he's coming into the prime of his career, and he's been a little banged up this season. just getting back. So we'll see how he comes along as the rest of the season goes and whatnot. But I think likely is a good chance that he likely comes back for this football team. It could be a talk of the money, and we'll get more into that in free agency. Mark Andrews, as much hate as he gets from last season, he's been pretty solid this year. And then other than that, though, I would just say maybe look at a late round running back to be a complement to Derrick Henry. Somebody that can be more of a goal line back would be really ideal for this. Because Derrick Henry's never really been good on the goal line. I feel like that's the thing this year, too. So Henry, maybe get a goal line back in this room would still be really, really nice. Moving and transitioning to the defense now here. And the theme for this defense is I think they are underperforming for what they have and who they have on this football team. You take a look at this defense just on paper, and you would be like, whoa, this is a potential top 5 defense in the NFL. I don't think that's too crazy to say. And I think Zachary Orr has partial blame for that. The coaching in general, they've tried, bringing in guys like Pease and defensive veterans to help him out and stuff. And it's tricky because I just don't know if I see it with Zachary Orr at the moment. Again, there's a lot of, I still think that there's a lot. Zachary Orr can be a good defensive coordinator, but right now it's clearly not working. And especially for the talent level that they have. He's dealt with a lot of injuries here, too. Every defense and offense coordinator, they're going to have their own injuries. So when you look at Matt Abuki, you lose Travis Jones. I mean, Travis Jones was banged up early in the season. He's just getting back. Broderick Washington's out for the year. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries on this defense. Jair Alexander was injured at the beginning of the season, and, he kind of fought through week 1. It was not a good showing there. And, since he's dealing with that injury. So Ardarius Washington's out for the year. All these sort of things are definitely challenging on a defensive coordinator. So I'm not going to say it's completely all on him to blame, but at the same time, I just think this defense in general has to be playing better for where they're at right now. And some of that definitely falls on coaching staff. And I think that's something we're going to have to really talk about. Who are potential options for this football team as a coaching if they're not comfortable with that. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with it just looking at this team. So in terms of strictly draft needs, defensive line, that's the number one thing. All across the board, they have to improve here. I hope Matt Abugi's injury is not career injury. Those next situations, you go back to the Ronnie Stanleys and stuff like that where you're worried. This could be multiple seasons that Matt Abugi could be dealing with this sort of thing. So DT becomes a high priority. I mean, it was already a priority for me, even with Matt Abugi. Now that this injury could be very, very serious, and I hope it isn't, but that is something we have to really think about. So defensive tackle becomes a big priority. They can always bring Brent Urban back. Like, they just call him up in a minute. Hey, if you need me, call me. I'll be there in a hurry. Oh, great. I'm going to have that stuck in my head all day. I'm going to be singing that at work today. But I think Urban's a guy they can bring back easily, whether it's practice squad. He's just one of those dudes they can call up anytime. They did, again, Taven Bryant, you name it. Some of these guys, John Jenkins, they brought in as a veteran. I am worried, though, about the future here. Travis Jones being a free agent, I think there's a good chance they extend him. I'd be shocked if they don't extend him. He'll probably get somewhere in like the Justin Jones contract money, which he got paid $13 million for the Denver Broncos. A very fair contract. So if you can get him somewhere around that deal, it'll make a lot of sense. Overall, DT is a big need. Edge rusher is also a big need. I've watched a good chunk of Mike Green this season. He's got to get stronger. All right. And simply put, they're playing him too at like 5 tech. That's another coaching decision. And when you talk about the theme of this, why are you putting Mike Green as like a 4-eye 5 tech at points? That doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. He should be a wide 9 situational pass rusher. When you see him go 5 or as a wide 9, 7 tech, true on pass rusher, he's been really good. That's his bread and butter. And I think that's what you should be using him as he gets stronger. He's going to need a full offseason to get stronger. And that is why just kind of some of those question marks come in the back of my mind. Well, where are you not utilizing your players to the best of your ability? Mike Green is one of those prime examples. And I think that if you allow Mike Green to be just a situational pass rusher this season, have more of your Tavis Robinsons be your run defenders. I mean, when Kyle Van Noy is still getting healthy and stuff like that, like those are more your run defenders. And Odessa Isaac, unfortunately, he was looking good in preseason. So they lost him. That sucks. But overall, pass rush is a big need. And Odafe he's been frustrating to me in many ways. Like, he's had big moments. It's just been very inconsistent. There are times where Odafe is playing really, really good, like Pro Bowl level. And then there's other times where I don't see him. And I'm out there like, where the heck is Odafe? I want to see more of him. So For me, that's a big question is do they pay him? And right now, I would say no, especially for what the contract he's going to get down in the open market. Somebody's going to pay Odafe Owe because he's just got so much upside and there's a lot there with him. I think Mike Green's got to step up into that role. Robinson's been their best edge rusher so far this year. In my opinion, in my eyes, just watching the games, I feel like Robinson has been the best guy on that defensive line thus far. So that is a huge need for them as well. Edge rusher, defensive tackle, 1 and 2, however you rank them, they're both huge needs that they have to address this offseason. Besides that, I'm not super worried. I think linebacker, they're fine. Teddy Buchanan has been very good. Now, you're going to look at last week versus the Chiefs. I haven't, like I said earlier, I haven't watched the full Houston game just yet, but Buchanan has been good. I think it's the Chiefs game. You're going to point to some things, and he was kind of out of place. That's partially coaching as well. Overall, like Buchanan to me has been very impressive as a guy who can drop back into coverage, has the athleticism, go sideline to sideline, and as a run defender, I thought he's been very impressive too. Some of the misdirection stuff as a rookie, I can let you go with that, especially versus the Chiefs. Again, Andy Reid's one of the best at that in the business. So all those things, I can let him for a bad game versus the Chiefs. Not too bad slide there. Overall, I think he's going to have to, we're going to see more of him because Roquan's now out for a few games too. Anyway, you got Hummel's going to step up there. Simpson had to step up in those roles. So I'm going to keep an eye out on some of those guys. And lastly here with the secondary, I think they're in a pretty good spot here. It's going to come down to who they bring back. Like Chidobe Awuzie has been pretty good so far this year. Alexander, maybe they make a decision on one of those guys. And then you're looking at some of the youth like Robert Longerbeam, Bilal Kone. Maybe one of those guys develops a little bit. And Marlon Humphrey has been picked on a little bit this year. I'll be honest. Like I had to lower my ranking down from like a 91 at the preseason down to an 86 with Humphrey. I'm not like super concerned, but at the same time, that's something you have to think about. They can't get off of his contract really this. I mean, they could save a little bit of money. I don't know if it's worth it at this point. We'll see what they decide to do there. If it gets really bad, then I'm sure they would. But for the time being, corner is a little bit of a volatile position any which way. And as I talk about, the lack of pass rush doesn't help either. Nate Wiggins has been really good though this year. So far, but pretty good. I mean, I've seen him get a couple of catches against it, but overall, like he's been tight in coverage, even though he's lost some contested catches. I think he's been pretty dang tight in coverage. Malachi Starks had some rookie moments this year. I've not seen him like overly blow me away, and I have seen him get beat a couple of times in coverage so far this year. But as a rookie, I can expect some of those things. People were saying after a few games with Kyle Hamilton, here, you know what I mean? And then he got flying as the season went along as a rookie. And Malachi Starks certainly could do the same thing. I'm definitely not ruling that out this season. Ardarius Washington, unfortunately, they lost him to an Achilles in the summer, which really sucks because Ardarius would be another great jack of all trades player in the secondary. You got Sanusi Kane, Ruben, Mr. Lowry, Mike Lowry over here. Ruben Lowry. I guess he's related to Mike Lowry. Anyway, bad boy over here on to their secondary. I feel pretty dang good about that overall. So to me, it's defensive line, defensive line, defensive line. Now it is that coaching conversation. Offensive coach Todd Monken is been still very, very solid. Not the problem, okay? To me, the problem comes down to Zachary Orr. People are going to mention John Harbaugh, and here's my thing. Look, it hasn't been perfect, and you can go back to John Harbaugh's record in those big moments. What has happened, right? Have they blown a lot of big-time leads versus those big teams in critical moments? Absolutely, and that is something that I look at with John Harbaugh. But at the same time, the grass is always greener. And I am a Jets fan, and you're like, oh, you're covering the Ravens. I love football. I love all 32 teams. And when you look at this as a whole and what I see as the potentials for what you could be having, letting go of a good thing is tough in my eyes. And I think John Harbaugh is still one of the top 10 coaches in the NFL. I know you might disagree with me on that, but I really believe that. And I have a hard time recommending you guys fire him, even though it hasn't been perfect at times. And you could be saying, well, you're wasting Lamar Jackson in the prime of his career. Yeah, there's some arguments to be made there. I still think John Harbaugh is way better than what you could be getting out there on the, the uncertainty of some of these other guys. Now, here would be my only thing where I'd be like, okay, fine. If you want to promote Todd Monken into the head coaching position because you feel like you're going to lose Todd Monken as a head coach somewhere else, that would be my only thing where I'd be like, okay, I get it. But I still just don't think the argument to let go of John Harbaugh makes any sense to me. So that to me is, I think John Harbaugh should still be the head coach. So let's kind of get that out of the way. The defensive coach here. I have some defensive candidates. I talked about some of these in the Titans video. You got Wink Martindale, Larry Foote, the linebacker coach over at Tampa. You got DeMarcus Covington there from Green Bay. I mean, you got some of these Aubrey Present and Durante Jones. I'm continuing to watch defensive minds out there right now in the NFL. So I'm not perfect when it comes to all of these guys. There's a lot of dudes to kind of watch out for. But I think Pleasant would be a really, really nice, pleasant option for them. He's the passing game coordinator, the defensive passing game coordinator there for the Rams. So he would be a nice, ideal candidate. I mean, Wink Martindale with the Michigan ties, but obviously they've got some they've let him go. So I don't know if that reunion's sort of going to happen. Maybe they could work it out. Who knows? But in general, I would say watch out for some of those guys like Pleasant or maybe Covington over the Packers, somebody to watch out for as well. Overall, they're going to have to really think about what they need to do from a coaching staff on the defense side of the ball. That is the one area that if you're going to make a change, it would be on the defense. Moving on to free agency, though, now, and we got to make a couple of tough decisions, especially the cap situation is a little tight, and we got a lot of players to re-sign. So, yeah, they've got some money here, and I'm not like pushing the code red on their cap situation. It will be tight, and we'll go through this. With some of these years, it's tough because you're dealing with injuries. Broderick Washington, Justice Hill, they're good football players. However, I'm trying to nickel and dime wherever I can, save a little bit of money, and that's really what it comes down to with these guys. Nothing against them. I think, once again, they're good football players that have good roles and everything like that. I'm just trying to save a little bit of money. I'm being a penny puncher over here. And then we got to restructure Lamar's contract a little bit. This is the first year where his contract escalates. It's going to be like $74 million on the cap hit. So that's something where they get him in. Maybe they even extend him a little bit more after the season, give him some new money, and that allows him to get that cap hit over these next couple of seasons down. Overall, that to me makes a lot of sense. What we did here is we restructured $28 million on his contract, and you divide that over the 4 years of what's currently on his contract, and that gets you to $21 million in save for this season. And then we go on to the free agency period. This is our free agents right here. I had a lot of tough decisions to make. And ultimately, I chose, first off, to re-sign DeAndre Hopkins to a 1 year, $4 million. Slightly a little less. Remember, he's getting a little bit older now, injuries, things like that. So it's a tough one. Maybe they go out and sign somebody different. But with the way Hopkins has played, even in a limited role, I'd love to bring back Hopkins. And then you got Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. That decision was challenging for me. But ultimately, I went with Isaiah Likely. And I think he's just a phenomenal player. He's just under Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's at like 17.25. And I think likely he's right in that Hawkinson range of being paid 4 years, $68 million. Get him that deal. It is done. Charlie Kohler, bring back as some depth. You got to bring back Patrick Ricard, one of the best blocking fullbacks in the NFL. Joe Noboom's been he stepped in nicely for Ronnie Stanley, held his own. And I figured they need to make sure they have a good swing tackle. We'll just bring back Joe Noboom here. Did let go Daniel Falele, let him go. I feel like Emory Jones can step in there and be a quality starter for them. And we'll definitely go in the draft to try to get somebody else too. Had to bring back Tyler Linderbaum. No brainer here. He's going to be paid top end money over Creed Humphrey, highest paid center now at $20 million average, 5 years, $100 million. Give him the contract, Baltimore. I know they don't pay centers, it seems like. Let's do it. Come on. I know it's not been a thing for them, but I think that Tyler Linderbaum is worth it. Jordan Stout, punter. He's been fine. I think he's been a good punter. Nothing crazy. Maybe a little bit for where they drafted him. They were expecting a little bit more. Overall, though, 2 years, $6 million, $3 million average. You could go either which way on that. If they want to go cheaper, then they could definitely do that. I'm not like super worried about it. Just kind of bring back our punter and long snapper, Nick Moore, there as the long snapper. On the defense side of the ball, Kyle Van Noy's another one where it's like Hopkins. I could see it going either way, but Van Noy just kind of seems like he likes it in Baltimore. And somebody that could see coming back on a cheap contract, team-friendly type of deal. So there's kind of that on this point, $4 million. And then Adafi Owe, David Ajabo, we're letting go both of those guys. Owe just too expensive. Ajabo hasn't worked out, unfortunately. And that's another thing. Just the development with some of these guys have not really been good enough, other than Tavis Robinson on that defensive line. Travis Jones, definitely prioritizing bringing him back. Yeah, the injuries have been something there with Jones, but overall, good football player when he's out there. And as I talked about earlier, I'm putting this in the mold of like a Justin Jones contract and what he got. $13 million average this season. We'll bump it up $1 million to kind of get him at 14 there. We did let go of John Jenkins, Brett Urban, Tevin Bryan, but as I mentioned before, they'll just call Brent Urban up and be like, hey, here we go. Come back, and that's what they'll do. So I'm not worried about that if they want some more depth with one of those guys. Jake Hummel, bring him back on a cheap contract to some depth, special teams. I had to make a decision between Jair Alexander, Chidobe Awuzie. I went ahead and chose Chidobe Awuzie since I feel like, he's been playing decent. or Darius Washington, coming back from that Achilles, maybe says, hey, let's do a 1-year prove it sort of deal. And I would love to see him back with his versatility. Could also give out some help in the slot too and some more depth on that cornerback room. So that does take us down to $20 million. And now we go into the restricted and exclusive restricted. Some of these are just little ganters, guesses. Like Keaton Mitchell might get a little bit more, but with his injury sort of the situation, that's why I put it around $1 million. And as I said before, these are little estimates. I have the practice squad coming in around $4 million. That's a budget. That's a little estimate for that. So, you take it with it is. This is $7 million. It might be a little more, might be a little less, actually. So it's just kind of a little ballpark sort of thing there. That leaves us with $13 million going into free agency. And Baltimore in general, they're very much a team that doesn't tend to spend big in free agency. And I expect them to do the same. I'm bringing in some guys that could potentially, elevate, right? And Evan Neal, 1-year deal. It's a prove it scenario. He gets an opportunity to compete with Emory Jones as a starter at that right guard position. And for Neal, it would make a lot of sense because you come to a good football team on a cheap contract, be it, but at the same time, he could get paid like Mekhi Becton did. So that's what I'm looking at here. Go to a good football team where you might have the opportunity to start and prove yourself and get a contract afterwards. Taquan Graham he's going to be coming off an injury. So he's another one of these guys that I think is a good rotational player that could take a little bit of pressure off Travis Jones there, and he could earn a contract after this if he's fully healthy and whatnot. Cam Taylor-Britt, another guy in division rivalry. This is this thing where it's like, yo, I want to get back at Cincinnati for letting me go, and he comes in here as a fourth corner. All it takes is one injury. He gets a chance to start and maybe proves his way into a contract. You got draft spend. I have it $9 million. That's a very rough estimate as well. If you're picking somewhere in the mid rounds, you're probably gonna have to pay about $3.5 million for a mid round pick for the first round. Second round around $2 million, and then you go from there and just kind of add it out. Once again, that could be a little less, a little bit more. But let's go into the roster before the draft. Highlight the needs once again. It is still guard on the offense. I want to continue to invest in that. Yes, we got Evan Neal in free agency. We got some spot starters, though, at the moment at the guard position. A little uncertainty, so at least throwing some more draft capital, be it a day 2 pick, would be very nice for this football team. Wide receiver could be a sneaky need at this point. We didn't do anything really in free agency, so I would say that could even be a day 2 type of need right here, is getting somebody for the future. DeAndre Hopkins, being that he's only more of a rotational player. It depends if Tez Walker, you feel comfortable in him stepping into more of that wide receiver role. I feel good about Bateman as the bait man, right? The commercials, man. It's go do a podcast or something, Bateman. But any which way, obviously you got your number one, Zay Flowers. So I'm not super worried about it, but they could always add another weapon. As I mentioned earlier, too, add more of a power goal line back, not power, but a goal line back, somebody there. And tight end is definitely a priority here, too. Trying to find, maybe we double dip at tight end, possibly even. Defense, it's defensive line. Absolutely. We'll be looking at that. Maybe some more depth besides that in the linebacker position. Overall, feel pretty good about it with Buchanan and Roquan locked in there. Simpson is the third linebacker. Maybe even Jay Higgins, right? The Iowa stud. Dude, oh my gosh, he's insane. Give him a chance. Why not? Let's go on to the draft. It's draft time. TJ Parker, Clemson Tiger, had his best game of the season versus Bill Belichick and that North Carolina offensive line, which, I get it. Not much to be said right now with that North Carolina team. It's not been good there. I'm not worried. Like Bill Belichick, give him a season or two or something like that. He's going to need some time before I can go ahead and judge some of that. But with TJ Parker himself, he's a bull rusher. And I think it'd be a good compliment with what they have in Mike Green right now. So if you're looking about a future pairing, that might make a little bit more sense. And you say Baltimore Raven type of a pocket pusher of the past. Well, maybe TJ Parker can be that. And maybe hopefully they can develop somebody. And Parker is a guy that he's going to need development. I get that. Overall, I thought about David Bailey too. Definitely an interesting one. However, with Mike Green, would they want to go back to back with like these lighter, more twitchy pass rushers? Could they? Yeah, absolutely. It depends what they're looking at. But I'm looking at this more of a mold of a guy that can be a little more of a power element on the opposite end. So that's why I went with TJ Parker here, the Clemson Tiger. Overall, a little bit of project right now. However, he's got those traits that still are going to covet that first round type of selection. Whether he can develop into that is going to be very questionable or not, but certainly a dude with a lot of talent. And if he continue to roll off some games like North Carolina, I've not watched the tape yet. I've just looked at the stat line, so I gotta be real with it. I don't know. I need to go watch that film, but the stats, he had his best game of the season. So maybe that uptick here as it goes along, definitely give him the benefit of the doubt there. Defensive tackle, Caleb Banks off the board here in the second round. I am a huge Caleb Banks fan, but here's the problem. The injury thing, this is one of those guys as we go into the draft, it would not shock me if he ends up going in like the 4th or 5th round because we just don't know what we don't know with his injury history. His foot thing has been a problem. He's had multiple foot injuries throughout his career. And that is a big deal. All right. It's a big deal. So I don't want to dismiss this like it's no big deal because it is. Unfortunately, it's just something you have to look at. And if you can't be on the field, availability is your best ability, of course. And that to me is critical. And that's why, like, he's a top 10 type of talent in the draft. I mean, I'm being quiet when I say that, but like, I'm real. Like, Caleb Banks is a stud. He just is very much on that injury big concern where I just don't know what we can get out of this guy. But if you're telling me Caleb Banks is healthy and we get to have this guy, it's going to be insane. Also, another question for me too, because there's contradicting reports. There's a report out there, or there's like, some of the listings have him his birthday like March 12th, 2023. And then there's some like December of 2001. I don't know which one it is. So he could either be a 24, 25-year-old prospect or he could be a 22, 23-year-old prospect. I don't really know which one it is. So if you're talking about a 24, 25-year-old prospect with injury rankings, he's not going in the first round. I'm just telling you right now. He's probably not even going in the second round. It's just going to come down. I don't know what I don't know right now. But in terms of strictly on the film, this guy is a top 10 type of player in the draft. He is that good. So I'm taking a chance here in the second round, seeing if we can strike gold. We'll see where it's at. But this dude has that type of potential. I think he is one of the toughest players in college football to guard on the interior of the defensive line. On it, and we need defensive line bad. And then we go Chase Bisontes. This is a guy that I could see coming back this next season. Still a very young football player. I don't even know if he's 21 yet. However, when you look at his film, it's so impressive. Like, he is really a great run blocker and is a pass protector too. He's got great length. I think he's got plus length for a guard. He has really good strength. He's got great torque, right? And it's not always perfect with Bisontes, but he's relatively balanced as a pass protector. I think he's got a good understanding what goes on around him in stunts. Like, it's something that I think he is just overall, he has a good solid IQ and presence about him when it comes to seeing things and seeing blitzes and working with his guards. Like, sometimes I always think when guards, when they're trying to help out, they're going to try to like push these guys. I think Bisontes does a better job of like being really patient because sometimes it makes it worse for your guard or your center or your tackle if you're playing guard, if you're just like pushing him, because it actually sometimes helps the defense tackle. I feel like Bisontes is really smart with the way that he picks up help with his center or with his left tackle in a sense that like he's not just like helping out the DT too much and not like trying to crush him. That's a little besides the point. I just think there's a little bit of a nitpick with some of these guys and when they're trying to help. And I understand they're trying to help and they're trying to deliver a knockdown. But you also be careful because sometimes these guys, they'll stunt themselves back up. But with Bisontes, overall, he's a guy that I could totally see coming back for a season and being a first-round type of pick next year. He really is a good football player. I'm going to have a video on him and this guy probably at some point because I really am a big fan of Chase Bisontes and what I've seen thus far. It's been limited, but what I've seen thus far, I've watched the Auburn tape too this year. Really like Bisontes. I watched a lot of him even as a freshman. This dude, I think, has legit first-round potential. But on to round number 4, C.J. Daniels. That was an interesting one, right? The Hurricanes are back at their ways. The old school days. But C.J. Daniels was on my radar. He's been on my radar going back to Liberty. I was a little bit too early, I guess, on C.J. Daniels. Last year, I had him as like a second, third round prospect. Really did like him. And he didn't quite do anything at LSU last season. But this year, he's been a Hurricane. He's been unbelievable. He's been very, very good. You look at this one-handed catch versus Notre Dame that he had, and he's been a very, very good football player for the U. And Carson Beck has been a big-time target. And not just in the screen game, too, downfield passing. He's certainly a dude to watch out for in this draft. I don't know how high he's going to go. He's a little bit of an older prospect, so that's why I still have him as a early day 3 guy. But the dude is a little thin as well, so that's something he needs to continue to get a little more play strength, I think, in the muscle mass. Overall, I like C.J. Daniels, man. I really do. I really was impressed with him at Liberty. I thought he was a better blocker, too, than people give him credit for. And even at Miami, I thought he's been a pretty dang blocker for them. Good blocker, too. So he's a guy to watch out for and could give DeAndre Hopkins a little bit of a nice backup future developmental guy. On to our next pick here, our first round 5 pick from the Jets. It's Oscar Delp. Another dude that I don't know. I know the production hasn't been there. I continue to like Oscar Delp. I think he can be a way better tight end in the NFL than what he is in college. The athletic traits are good. The blocking skills are good. Yes, the production, as I mentioned, has not been there. Maybe the route running continued to get better. But overall, I just need more opportunities with Oscar Delp. I really like Oscar Delp, and I still think he's got a lot of potential. And tight end is one of those positions where you just don't really know. And I'm betting more on what he can be than what he is right now. So I'm taking a chance on here with Oscar Delp to at least be a good backup behind Isaiah Likely. And then we go on to Katron Allen. Or should I say Katron Allen from, I'm trying to do the Gus Johnson over here, but is literally their offense in many ways. So Katron Allen's been fantastic once again. Here's the thing, though. Is he more of a college running back? Probably. Does he have the athletic traits? No. Is he going to run like a 4.6? Probably. And that's what it is. But I love Katron Allen. I think he's a bulldozer. He at least can be a great goal line back. Like, he's got a nose for the football. And why not get somebody to be a nice compliment in here with Derrick Henry, Katron Allen? That's the way that I'm going, at least. All right. I think he can pass protect, too. He's not the biggest or longest guy. I don't think he's as good as Nick Singleton in pass pro, but he's not a schnub either. So our next 5th round pick, I'm just going with an okie dokie, absolutely plug and play, sort of rotational interior defensive lineman, David Oki, transferred over from Abilene Christian at Arkansas. I've not watched his film just yet at Arkansas, so I need to get through that, but he is a stout run defender and just, I feel like a rotational guy. I don't see him as like a big time starter or nothing like that, but the dude has a lot of fundamental NFL traits that you look for. So just a guy that I feel like is going to be a dude that outperforms his draft stock wherever he ends up going. And while he might not be flashy or anything crazy, he's going to help out your football team. And basically, the mold in this is like Broderick Washington. And that's what I'm seeing here, is somebody that can replace him and help you out on a cheap 4-year contract sort of ability, or at least 3-year contract, depending on what they decide to do with that sort of thing. But David Oki there in the 5th round. And next 5th round pick, Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. Another guy I need to get to the film on, but I've heard he's been very, very good at Georgia Tech and is definitely an All-American candidate over there, the right guard. So number 77, keep an eye out on this guy. I will at some point get to the film on him. Maybe I'll do a video on him too if I like what I see. So Rutledge can be a good little developmental guy for us and help out this roster some more, give us some competition. We certainly need it there at that guard position. Final pick of the draft. I have watched a good amount of Jack Velling. He's pretty nice after the catch. He's got some good verticals up the seam speed. Not like an insane athlete or nothing like that, but a good football player. He's a willing blocker. He's not going to overpower anybody. I'm a State fan. He doesn't overpower dudes. That's not his calling card or anything like that. But he does have a foundation to work with. He can continue to get a little bit stronger too. He's not the longest guy, which does hurt him a little bit in the blocking game as well. But somebody that can be a little like backup for Isaiah Likely when it comes to that too, for his vertical stretching ability. And Jack Velling just kind of seems like a guy also that I think is going a little bit under the radar and can see being a good football player, at least a nice little backup for a football team. And that's what we're doing here. Trying to bring in some competition between Oscar Delp and Jack Velling, kind of like what they did. A couple, what they drafted, of course, Mark Andrews. And then in the first round, they drafted, what's his name? I'm blank. It's been a minute, but they kind of double dipped and it ended up working out. They found at least one tight end. So we'll do the same. But that's going to do it here for the draft. Take a look at the roster. How did we improve this scenario? Hopefully we did. On offense, I try to double dip the offensive line. I double dip the tackle, the tight end position. Figured let's add strength in numbers here. Chase Bisontis, a guy that I could see coming back, but really I think this dude could be a big-time starter in the NFL. Like him a ton. Maybe David Andrews' style of player. Chase Bisontis to compete with Andrew Voorhees and continue to best in that offensive line. I don't think I said that right, but we're going to go with it. Keelan Rutledge, another guy here who's been playing well by the looks of it, and definitely an All-American candidate, as I was saying before. I can't wait to watch some film on Rutledge. And then you got Evan Neal coming in free agency here to give him some more competition with Emory Jones right away. He's trying to prove himself and get a contract for the long haul. So bring in that competition. And then you got Katron Allen. I'm trying to do a little Gus Johnson impersonation over there to be the goal line back for this football team. You got Keaton Mitchell as the Flash. You got Henry as the King. And now you add in Katron Allen. You got Rasheen Ali as a special teamer, but Allen as that goal line carrier. Oscar Delp, the hammer over here, we're going to call him, the WWCC. I don't know. Jack Valley here at tight end could be another little backup for this football team. But 2 tight ends, let's see what happens, right? CJ Daniels, a wide receiver, not a running back, on which I had listed over there. Typo on my account, but CJ Daniels gonna be a nice little developmental guy behind DeAndre Hopkins. I'm hoping Daniels works out because I think he's a guy that has been underrated. I'm glad he's gotten a real good chance here for the Hurricanes. Big fan of his tape. And then we go on to the defense side of the ball, and we were attacking those trenches. We got Caleb Banks. A little bit of a blackjack. All 20, we're hitting on, we're going all in the slots at this point. Like, it's all in with Caleb Banks, but the upside is just too high for me to not take a chance on, especially if Matabuki's injury is more serious, and which hopefully it is not. That is the big key. However, we need to invest in it. I also get David Ogie, who I feel like can fill in that long-term role of a Broderick Washington for this defensive line, and give Travis Jones some much-needed rest. We also bring in Taquan Graham, though, as an immediate impact there for rotation. And then even people's going to year number 2, too, should be able to have a little bit more of a play on that defensive line. TJ Parker, going to be our first-round selection here. I got to get some more edge talent. I list Tavis Robinson as a starter because I feel like he's been pretty dang good, and I don't see why he can't start right all the way. And Parker can be a rotational player. And along with Mike Green, we bring Kyle Van Noy back in free agency. Those would be your 4 or 5 guys with it. This is Isaac. If he can get healthy, I still like Isaac, man. I still think he's got a chance. Cornerback, we just bring in a free agent with Cam Taylor-Britt. Besides that, though, nothing else crazy. We just bring back our guys and maybe bring in a new defensive coordinator. That's definitely something they have to have a conversation about, too. So that's where I'm at with the Baltimore Ravens. Let me know what you think, agree or disagree. I still think this is a very much a contender this year, though. It just comes down to they got to get a little more healthy, avoid some of these big injuries, and then figure out this defensive thing. And when Lamar Jackson gets healthy, you always have a chance. Their schedule looks very, very favorable, and this division is going to be one where it wouldn't be a shocking situation if an 8-win team wins the division this season. So we'll see what happens. Those Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Bengals matchups are going to be critical, and they have to play them twice this season. So that's a majority of their games right there. And they got to play the Jets. They have a lot of very favorable matchups, and that's why I think that they could still end up making the playoffs here. But for right now, I wanted to run through this roster, see what was going on, and really figure out what we need to do in the offseason. We'll do another mock draft here when the season is over. Let me know what you think, though. I hope you guys have a really cool day. My name's Cecil. I'm doing my thing, and I'll talk to you later.